Hello, today what we're going to be doing is construction of the unit circle and then analyzing the cosine and sine for each point on that circle. The first thing that we want to do is a point A, which is at the origin, and we want to fix that point so that it does not go anywhere. So we're going to go to the properties here in Basic and fix the object, like so. The next thing that we want to do is we want to create a circle using that point, and we want the radius to be 1 because we're creating the unit circle. And so this circle is called circle C. And the next thing that we want to do is to create point B so that it is at 1, 0. Easiest way to do that is to type it in the input bar. And we also want to fix this point, so right click here, go to settings, under the basic tab we want to fix that object so that we don't accidentally move it later on. So notice that we cannot move point A, we cannot move point B. The next thing that we want to do after that is create point C so that it is on the unit circle. We're going to go to our point tool, and I want to select the point on an object. And so I'm going to select point C here. Now point C we want to be able to move, so we're not going to fix point C. We do, however, want to create an arc. So we're going to go to our circle tool, and we want to create a circular arc. So select the center and then 2 points, B and C. Now this arc we need to be able to see clearly, so we're going to make it a different color. I'm going to make it red so that it really stands out. And we don't want the name to be D, we want to see the value. So go down to show label, we want to show the value of that arc. That's going to be the length of that arc. Another thing that we want to do is we want to make sure the line thickness is appropriate. I'm going to, instead of make that 5, I'm going to make that a 7 so that it's much thicker than the rest of the circle. Okay, the next thing that we want to do is we want to change these particular measurements on the x-axis here. Because the unit circle is a circle, we want to use pi and pi over 2. So make sure you're on the move and select tool, and we're going to click on our x-axis here and go to graphics. Now we want the distance, check the distance box, to be pi over 2. And we're going to select these tick marks here. We want the unit to be in pi. And we're crossing at the 0. I think that's all that we need to change as far as the x-axis. So if you now notice, let me zoom in a little bit here. We've got our unit circle here. We've got our arc from B to C. Points A and B are fixed, and now we have pi over 2, pi, 3 pi over 2, and 2 pi. What we're going to do after this is to create another point that depends on the values in the unit circle. Okay, so we're going to do a point called point P, and we're going to make the x value to be D, which is the length of my arc, And then the y value is going to be y of capital C. So it's going to depend on where that point C actually is. We're going to create, and let me go ahead and change the color of this as well while we're at it. Let's make the color to be a blue. And then we're also going to create point Q. This one's going to be for our cosine. This is going to depend on point D, which is actually the length from B to C. And then the y value is going to be the x of point C. And for this one, I'm going to change its color to green. There we go. All right, so notice that as we move my point C, my points P and Q, representing the sine and cosine, also move. Notice that point P and Q are exactly the same when my arc is at 3.92. My P and Q are exactly the same when my arc is at 0.79. That's interesting. Let's go ahead and type in over here pi divided by 4 and see what we get. The approximation is 0.79. Interesting. So my sine and cosine values will be exactly the same whenever I am at pi over 4 on my unit circle. Let's go ahead and put in pi over 4. And then we're going to add to it pi. That's, as you know, that's the 180 degrees. And then press enter. So that's 5 pi over 4, which is about 3.93. Well, let's see. They're at the same spot again at about 3.92, 3.93. So that's not an accident. That's actually supposed to be like that. Now let's go ahead and take the sine function and trace it out. So as you can see, as I get back down to 0, it goes all the way to my 0, 0. And then it comes back from the 2 pi. So around the unit circle, it goes all the way through the sine function, through one period of it. Now let's go ahead and trace the cosine function. So if we start the cosine function here, notice that it's starting at 0, 1. And then as we go around the unit circle, it's just going to trace out the entire cosine function, like so. So observations, we noticed when sine and cosine were equal. We can also notice when they are exactly 1 unit apart, which is going to be here and here and here and here and here. So at pi over 2, pi, 3 pi over 2, and 2 pi, that's when they'll be exactly 1 unit apart as far as the y-axis goes. I believe that's about it for today's video. Thank you for listening.